Alright, well, hello, and welcome to a special episode of Body the Cloud9 Fancast. I'm your host, Havokpus, and today we're going to be talking about the recent Overwatch League drama. It's just too juicy to pass up. We didn't even schedule this, you guys. We were actually going to be taking this week off, but it was so spicy that we had to put our 2 cents into this while it was still relevant. Today I'm joined by our good friends Frozencreek and Trey.
In Tony,
How,
Montana.
Rest in peace, Tony Montana.
how are you? How are you, gentlemen? Today?
I just burnt some food inside the microwave, so that's how my day's going.
Sick.
I rushed home from doing stuff to just be a part of this, so I'm doing great.
All right. I feel so special now. Before we get into it, I think I should at least inform our viewers maybe on the background of the Overwatch League, just to kind of give them a sense of what's going on. So, Blizzard wants to make an Overwatch League. It's a franchise league, much like the NFL or NBA. They eventually want to move this to a point where each team is like in a city, and they have home and away games, and it's this whole thing. They really want to put Overwatch on the map as a competitive esport, want to make it the esport. They're hoping the league will put them on the map and become the next big thing in competitive esports. So what happened today was there was an ESPN article written by Jacob Wolf, who the article basically says multiple teams, including big names like TSM and Splice, have dropped out of the Overwatch League. And this is because Blizzard is asking a whopping $20 million for a franchising fee, and teams will not be able to share the revenue gained from the Overwatch League until 2021. If they want to sell their spot, they'll also have to give 25% of the money that they sold it for to the league itself. So a lot of craziness going on because there's, the price seems to be too high, and there are contract disputes. So what do you guys think of this news? It seems pretty crazy, especially since Cloud9 seems to be investing a lot in this Overwatch League.
All right, I'm gonna say it right now because it just showed up on Twitter, but Monte Cristo just tweeted, and not sure why everyone in esports thinks that franchises have quote unquote prices like something you buy at the store. This is a business arrangement. But I'm sure that he'll be going on and on about that. It's kind of weird that it's going to be such a high price considering that a League of Legends spot in the LCS just sold for 1.8 million, I believe, last split. This is multiple times higher, and I don't blame teams for dropping out of it. There's been nothing to show that Overwatch is going to be an esport this big.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that point. And the thing is, there's just not enough infrastructure to keep this in place. There's nothing that's going to say this isn't going to go down a road like StarCraft 2, where, okay, the Koreans are really good, but Blizzard doesn't know how to properly franchise their game. They don't know how to keep people interested. So the best of the best stay, and then everything else goes because they don't want to put in the infrastructure for other regions. And it's already starting to happen in Overwatch, I feel, where we see Koreans are just so much better right now. And it's only been a year.
Yeah, the game came out like last year, I think.
It's only been around a year, and we're already seeing Overwatch is dropping in players. The game is getting stale for the normal viewer. It's hard to watch an Overwatch match as a new viewer. And that's somebody who came in as a new viewer to League and a new viewer to Dota, where those games you have no idea what's going on, but at least the UI helps you a little bit. In Overwatch, if you don't know what's happening, you are going to really struggle to try and understand the game. And I think Blizzard doesn't have anything to account for this.
I think another thing that Blizzard is really shooting themselves in the foot on is I think I'm not sure if it's 100% true or not, or to what extent, but they're really starting to also pull support out for like individual, like independent tournaments. They're not allowing things like maybe like I think it's like the Royal Rumble or like the Alienware monthly Rumble.
The monthly melee.
Yes, the monthly Melee. They've started pulling their support from that, and I think maybe a few other independent tournaments because they want the Overwatch League to be the end all be all. Kind of like how League of Legends, where Riot is really the only one that's showing their game and doing the matches, but this is kind of hurting them because Overwatch isn't, I think, maybe as big enough as like League is to where you can kind of keep it in one area. And it also has, I think, maybe some other problems, and you're kind of sequestering yourself off already, and you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
I think one of the big differences is that League had 2 to 3 years of building up the scene before they were like, okay, we're going to make this main League championship. And even though we're going to have this main League championship, the teams that are in this franchising type professional league can't play in any other leagues. But everybody below that can. Or everybody below Challenger Series can still play in these open tournaments. And there's nothing like that for Overwatch, and there's no funding for it. So without the funding, you aren't going to create the infrastructure to keep your game running. And Blizzard have failed time and time again to understand this. So I feel like it's going to become a situation where Overwatch dies out, not because it's a bad game, not because the community's not there, but just because Blizzard doesn't know how to do it correctly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. They've historically been very poor handling their games and entering into esports. Do you think this... Frozen, do you have...
Yeah, I was gonna agree with a lot with what Trey just said, and go on it a little bit more, comparing it to League. I think that League made a really good decision keeping all of it in a one area, and just because it gave all the teams a chance to be around each other, it let players move between teams easier, and it's like an economic advantage to have like a business closer together with like other big businesses, but because they can pick up like tricks of the trade, I guess, from the other side, and it can boost both businesses. And I think that has helped with League a lot, that teams can visually see, can drive 20 minutes or however long it takes in LA traffic down to the road for maybe TSM likes how Cloud9 is working with their sports is psychologist or something. They can just drive down to the road as opposed to flying from Boston, because Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots and New England Revolution, is rumored to be in on this Overwatch deal. It's much different flying from New England to Chicago, which is even kind of short. But then you add in like Dallas, where you add in LA. But I'm assuming this geographical thing is like a goal in the future and not an immediate thing.
Yeah, yeah.
I read the article right.
Yeah, yes. So Blizzard eventually wants to get to that point, but I think for the first few years they're going to keep it, I think, just stationed in probably like LA or something, just to make sure that everything is working properly and you have teams, you have the teams in, you have everyone competing, and everything is set up. And once kind of viewership and everything builds and the Overwatch League gets bigger and they kind of meet their sort of revenue projections, then maybe they can start spreading out in a more global, spread out sense.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring the top topic. I just put it down just because I think it's relevant, and then we can come back to what you were gonna bring up before I interrupted you. But if esports is like the next big thing, then isn't this geographical allocations idea like kind of the next move that esports should move into? or is this like a risk that someone needs to take on because there's a good enough chance that it's going to work? Or is there another move that they should go towards?
I think it may be Blizzard might be a little ahead of its time here, where yes, it may be a good idea to go for this like idea and have these places where okay, we're going to give you a city. The problem with that is there is not enough money in the scene to cover constant traveling costs. You aren't going to get enough practice time. Other regions, smaller regions, are going to have significantly better gains from this just because, like in Korea, it's not nearly as big as the continental United States. They will be able to practice and travel very easily. In like the continental US, if you have a team that's stationed in even in the same state, Sacramento and LA, that's a long drive, or that's a decent plane flight. Take that out of your day and you have that much less time to practice. Then you have to compete in an event. It's just the infrastructure and the money for it is not there. And the idea that you're asking 20 million from startups to participate in this league where you don't even know how long the game is going to last. The longevity is already being questioned only a year in. So I think there's too many variables to say, yes, this is a good idea.
A counterpoint to that is a comment I read on Reddit that I'm gonna summarize, I guess, a little bit. So this 20 million, while it is a big price, it's kind of to make sure that owners are serious about getting into the league and is establishing a team, as opposed to in league where you often hear about teams like Taint and Mines who don't provide the correct equipment or housing situations, and it even still happens in LCS that teams like FlyQuest didn't even have the computers to work with. But if a team puts down 20 million to get a fucking spot, then that they're gonna have their shit together to make sure that they're helping grow and build the league up to what it should be, or could be, I guess.
See, but that's not necessarily true. They already put 20 million down. To a counterpoint to your counterpoint is that they've already put 20 million down. At that point, they're in no matter what. They're going to eventually make money, so they just have to wait it out. They don't have to provide for their players as much as like a League of Legends team would, because like that's one of the reasons I don't like the idea of franchising sometimes, is because like if you don't provide, players are going to leave, your team's not going to make it back in, and you're considered a bad org at that point, and you're not going to make it, and that's just what you are. I think with like the Overwatch League, a $20 million franchise fee, a team could be one of the worst scummy people, but if they have enough money, it won't matter.
That's a very good point. I think one thing about the 20 million that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it's not to Trey's point, but it's just that it seems like it's asking a lot, especially to some esports like TSM. I remember like maybe like a year ago when Reggie was talking about how they needed franchising. You know, he was saying how like, I barely make any money, you know, the TSM team is barely making any money. I'm having to like shift money from like our CSGO team and all these other teams just to make, you know, our League of Legends team, you know, competent in competing, or whatever the word is. You know, and sometimes esports orgs, you know, I don't think they could drum up 20 million unless they had like an insane investor push, like what with Cloud9 did. You know, we got like Joe Montana, we got I think Tesla, we got a bunch of like a lot of big investors to come and invest into the organization. probably for this specific reason, maybe a few other reasons, but how many organizations can really, besides like Robert Kraft and the New England Patriots, how many organizations can really drum up this much money and be able to afford not only Overwatch League stuff, but any other esports team that they have?
Yeah, another thing I see is this is just going to mark up prices. Like, if you're paying, so much money has to be, if they have 16 teams, in order to make your money back, for all the teams to make their money back, and this is with Blizzard without making money, that's $320 million you have to make in 4 years. That's an incredible feat for an esports to do. That would take pretty much Blizzard taking skin money, taking game prices, taking tickets, taking prize pools, taking all of that. It just, the money isn't there. And I don't care what investors you get, the money is just not there.
Yeah, and I don't think that Blizzard has shown that they can undertake something so big. They make great games. I mean, Overwatch is so much fun to play, but they've shown no ability to make a competent esport. Or, well, I guess that's not fair to say, because StarCraft back in its prime, it was a pretty big esport, but like that they haven't proven to make a big modern day esport, like something with a lot of infrastructure around the world, and they haven't shown any plans to, besides the Overwatch World Cup, to make a big tournament happen to show that to show investors that they got this. I mean, even the Overwatch League in Korea is an OGN league.
Yeah, there's just simply not enough money in the circulation to provide for these overstanding costs, and when you're pulling support for smaller tournaments away, you're essentially killing your competitive scene.
So,
sorry.
No, yeah, I was gonna kind of transition towards the killing part, because is this blunder that Overwatch is experiencing, with big names like TSM, who has an enormous fan base, is pulling out of Overwatch League? Is this just a bump in the road for Overwatch League, or could this potentially be the first nail in the coffin to killing Overwatch and competitive Overwatch?
I think this is a turning point for Overwatch. This is where we're going to see the big esports names start to drop out and the big sports names start to come in. So I think this is really where the difference between esports and real sports are going to collide. Because what Blizzard is trying to do is it's trying to set up a real sport. Which, I'm sorry, Overwatch in this monetary sense will not make as much as a real sport. There is not enough fan base that is passionate enough to care about competitive. Like, the difference between, let's say, League and Overwatch is that the competitive scene for League is largely supported because most people, a large majority of people that play the game are also interested in cheering on their region. The same cannot be said for Overwatch.
I'm not even sure how true that is. I think that League's player base is just so large that they're by non-numbers that the people who are interested in the esport are a big non-number now. Yeah, but sorry, continue.
Well, that's also true, and that is numbers that have to be looked into, and you're correct. But League also is a free-to-play game, which makes it a lot easier for somebody to get into and somebody to think about. Overwatch, you have to put out $40 or $30, depending on what the price is. just to start getting into it and to start understanding it, and then it's already a fad that's beginning to fade fast. It was a fun FPS, but that's all it is. It's pretty much it was sweeping up the remains of an old scene and trying to revive it, and there's very few games that have been able to survive a revival of scenes, and I'm sorry, trying to revive a TF2 scene and remake it is not going to work.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of the game is just not in depth enough. Like as of now, there's 25 heroes maybe. There's only like
I don't think there's 25 yet, but there might be. I'll have to check.
I haven't counted them, and I don't even think there's 15 maps at this point. I think that's definitely on the high side. I haven't counted those either, just because I'm a scrub at Overwatch.
Yeah, the resources in the game are pretty sparse. You only have a few maps. You only, in terms of like playing the game, it's either control point or payload maps, I think, for actually playing it, and you don't really have that many heroes, so it's kind of, you feel very boxed in by the amount of stuff you can kind of go and play with.
There's only 24 heroes. So, on top of that, 24 heroes, you aren't pumping these out often. So, the variety in the game is already, like, pretty scarce. If they continue to change the meta, where certain characters just, certain heroes just aren't usable in a professional sense, then you get a very linear game.
Yeah, and I think one thing that League does well is that they kind of rotate out their meta pretty fresh, or they keep their meta pretty fresh. Like there's tank metas, there's carry top laner metas, jungle metas, and all that happened in one split. But that's not really something that you can see changed up in Overwatch, just because there's not as much depth into the maps or in any of the heroes, because a lot of the heroes do like one thing that a lot of teams want. You're like Reinhardt and Lucio.
Yeah, I think it's just, to finish up my point, Overwatch tried to become, in my eyes, Overwatch tried to become the new league of first-person shooters, but they can't pump out characters fast enough to gain popularity. They can't pump up maps fast enough to keep the game interesting. It's not going to keep the community that it has. People are already starting to fade away, and unless it can get more people into it, they're going to falter.
Yeah, and one more point before we close up. What I find kind of scary is that some of their quote unquote big events, I guess to try and get people into Overwatch a little bit, was promoting who was it, Tracer, Genji, Diva, and Lucio into Heroes of the Storm, which was Blizzard's attempt at a MOBA, which has been wildly unsuccessful until recently. But I think if Blizzard has any chance of making this work, we're going to see Heroes of the Storm make a miraculous revival first.
They brought out 2.0. It's very possible, actually.
It's and
I've
I
actually
think
been
that
playing it, and it's actually decent.
Yeah, and I think that if they're going to make Overwatch a big thing, that we'll be able to see indications starting with how Heroes of the Storm 2.0 goes. But that's all I have to say about anything, I think.
Trey, do you have any last words before we close out this little interesting mini episode?
Blizzard's fucking stupid.
Agreed. They have no idea how to do esports.
Okay, I have one last question. quick answers up and down. So it's 7:14 Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday. We're gonna be posting this pretty quickly. Well, what would you guys do if Gigabyte Marines beats SKT?
Oh man, I don't even know. On the one hand, NA's not much of a joke since, if Gigabyte's Marines can beat SKT, that means that Gigabyte Marines in themselves are fairly good, and if TSM can lose to Gigabyte Marines, then it's not that bad.
I'll do a 24-hour stream this weekend if they win today. It's not happening. Faker they got Lulu, like it's not happening. I'm sorry. Good luck, Gigabyte Marines. It's not happening.
All right. I don't have anything to add. I just saw that on Twitter and wanted to bring it up. So this podcast should be up on Wednesday night after the SKT and Gigabytes match. So look forward to Trey's 24-hour stream this weekend.
Dude, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
There's no way. They have Lulu.
You don't believe?
They have Lulu, Echo, Rumble. They're going to get absolutely demolished by SKT.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, let's wrap it up.
All right.
Well,
Hopefully, at least Cloud9 Overwatch works out, because I've become really invested in this team as a fan, so I hope their dreams come out. Oh, also just a shout out to our Vainglory team. They are going to be playing in the London finals, and they have a day one bye, which will be extremely good for them, so check out the Vainglory team. I believe it starts next week. So if you want to see the Vainglory team play in like a championship type tournament, please check them out. They're very good. Maybe gonna take it all this spring, so check that out. Also, thanks for listening to this, I guess, little mini episode of Bodied the Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to us at C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. We'll answer all questions and all that good stuff on our next episode if you have them. So thanks for listening, and feel free to actually tell us in the comments what you think about this situation, because I'm really curious to see what our listeners have to say. So thanks, and we'll see you next time.
bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.